I am Steve Ludwig, otherwise known as Mr. Insurance, and I am sitting on location here with Brandon Smithton. He is the CEO and owner of Dirt Legal, wildly successful registered agent service. In my opinion, the best of the best, the GOAT. And this is actually the first time me and you, we get a chance to be able to meet. We've been doing business for a minute, and we decided that snow was not going to be as good as sunshine. We decided to head on down here to Fort Lauderdale, bring the crew with us, and get to be able to shake hands and be able to see each other in person and get a chance to be able to get together. So I should say welcome, but you welcome me, I guess, to your office as well.
Yeah, thanks for coming by, Steve. Looking forward to this.
So tell me a little bit about, a lot of people don't understand what Dirt Legal does, or like how impressive this business is, and like the need that people have for this stuff. Like they don't realize the things that you can do. Maybe just like kind of rewind back and how you got started into this. I know the story personally from me and you, we talking, but to just be able to really tell us a little bit more about what it is that why you got into it, how it evolved. I mean, you become wildly successful with this as well, and helped so many different people. There's thousands of reviews out there of you guys just knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, so we actually just hit 1,000 reviews between just Facebook and Google last week.
Right.
Just because some of the efforts we've been putting in, and thanks to your help as well. And the way it got started, it was 2016, about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Started with a dirt bike that I had. It was a little CRF 150, not made for the road. I think I had a title for it, and I wanted to drive it on the road with my friends. They all had street legal bikes, but turns out I couldn't. So I called the DMV in Florida, and I'm like, hey, I want to get this inspected. They're like, all right, bring it in here, get it inspected. So I called to schedule an appointment, and then they asked the type of vehicle it was. When I told them it was a dirt bike, they said, no, even if you get it inspected and install the street legal parts, you're not going to get it on the road. So I decided to do some research, and I found in South Dakota, there is a way where you can register a bike and make it street legal. No inspections. You don't have to go there. You don't have to be a resident. So I actually followed the process, sent out my title, filled out some forms, and it took probably about 6 weeks the first time, just because I didn't know what I was doing, just trying trial and error. And after a few times back and forth with the DMV, gave them payment over the phone, and they said, all right, your license plate's on the way. And it seemed too good to be true. I got it maybe a couple weeks later, threw it on the bike, and rode it for a while, no issues. So then I just started to put some Craigslist ads up to see if other people would want that service. So it was just making dirt bikes street legal at first. And then over the course of a few months, it was going pretty well. We were getting a few orders a month. I was just driving to people local. I had a motorcycle. So I would just drive over to them. I had all the paperwork in my backpack, fill it out. They'd write me a check, and then they'd get the license plate. And then over time, I realized that other people can use this in other states. So then what I did was I did Craigslist ads all over in the motorcycles for sale section, because it was free at the time. And there wasn't really anybody advertising services. So I would get calls, California, Florida. And then once we started getting a few from different places in the U.S., we started the website just with the street legal services for dirt bike, ATV, and UTV. And then we slowly became known for that. And that's why it's the name Dirt Legal, because we're making off-road vehicles street legal, and started off with dirt bikes. And then since then, we've expanded to dealing with cars and other states as well.
Yeah, I know. What is the full spectrum of everything that you guys offer, just so that people can know?
Sure. So other than registering off-road vehicles, which we deal with dirt bikes, ATVs, UTVs, now we also deal with mini trucks, which are usually key trucks, they're called, from Japan. And
JDM cars.
Yeah, JDM cars. And then also military vehicles. So you have like the Humvees, Stewarts, and Stevensons. A lot of people buy those from auctions, like Gulf Planet, that buys these all from the military. And then you can find a pretty good deal for them in all sorts of different conditions. And we register those with and without titles. As well as the off-road vehicles, we deal with cars. So anything from a regular car to an exotic car, even if it's salvaged, we can register it without any inspections through South Dakota. We deal with exotic cars by registering them in Montana for no sales tax. And then also you get a permanent plate on all motorcycles, vessels, jet skis, things like that in Montana. So we utilize Montana for pretty much all types of vehicles. And even if there's no title, so let's say you bought an old car or you bought a vehicle and you lost the title, we can help do a title recovery by doing a bonded title through Montana for just a small value of the vehicle. So then you can get it registered and get it on the road or sell it at a later date, and it'll increase the value of the vehicle.
It used to be Vermont, right? But Vermont had recently done some amendments to they restricted what they used to be able to do, right? Where it was like you basically had to have like a bill of sale, right?
Yeah, Vermont was basically, as people called it, America's DMV. There was many articles written about it. Vermont's been going on for many years now, and there's a few other services for people to get a title. But the vehicle they had one requirement: it had to be 15 years old, and if it was a motorcycle, it could be under 300 cc's, and it didn't matter what age. So essentially, you can buy a brand new 2023 from somebody, not from the dealer, obviously, because they'll provide you with the title unless you're financing. But let's say you bought something, even if it was a 2022 motorcycle, that's a 250. You can go to the DMV in Vermont with just a handwritten bill of sale. As long as there's no liens and it's not reported stolen, they'll retitle it with a Vermont registration. And that Vermont registration you can use to transfer it to another state like Florida.
But people weren't doing the transfer. That was the problem, right?
Well, what happened was states like Florida, they thought it was too easy to get a Vermont registration. So other states put pressure on Vermont and says, hey, we don't like how easy it is. So now they changed the rules back in July to require you to be a resident of Vermont to be able to get it registered. So we found a workaround for a couple months, and then they changed the rules again.
Yeah.
So now that loophole is essentially closed, and you can only do the Vermont process if you actually live there.
Okay. That's impressive. I didn't know about all the developments on that stuff, but one of the things that I definitely wanted to also talk to you about, I mean, aside from your businesses, in my opinion, I think the best registered agent service, you're the only ones that I recommend, because I know that you're going to hit a home run every time. And working with you and just seeing how punctual and professional, and just like you guys, it's no surprise to me why you have become so wildly successful. And again, in my opinion, and really you're kind of supporting that opinion with the success that you guys are having, of where you're found everywhere. Talk to me a little bit though about developing that, because that's something that you guys do better than pretty much everybody out there. And I don't necessarily mean just in your line of business. I mean in a lot of other places. Like, you guys have a ton of blogs, you got a ton of SEO, a ton of information that draws people into the site. So it's kind of like a natural result when a person goes looking for anything. Now, I'm going to argue as well on here too that it's a wildly popular subject. You start talking about you don't have to pay taxes on something, you don't have to pay personal property tax, you don't have to, go through inspections. Well, people are wondering how to be able to save a buck these days. So, anything that I put out on YouTube or anything like that, it gets a ton of reviews. You get a lot of people talking on there too, about your fraud in the system and everything else. But it's a completely legal way to be able to do it that has been set forth by the state of Montana and South Dakota and, other states, that there's a workaround to be able to do it. People have been using, Delaware to be able to take care of licensing their planes out of for years. It's a very the corporation friendly state, and same thing with Wyoming. It's a very friendly corporation state, and this is really no different when it comes to that. These are things that are offered that people don't know are accessible to them, and we're all supposed to, I guess, in ways feel as though that like we're not doing something the right way or whatever because we're saving money. But the most wealthy people in this world have mastered the tax game, right? We found ways how to be able to save on our taxes. Save and avoid are two different words, right? So if you're not avoiding it, you're saving on those taxes. And if that means that you're paying nothing, why not, right?
Yeah. So
You're a
actually,
smart businessman.
when it comes to avoids, no K word. It's the word evade that you
Evade.
stay away
That was
from.
the one I was looking for.
So
Yeah, that was it.
it's perfectly legal to avoid taxes. Evading is when it's illegal. But obviously with Montana, you're using their laws and you do the LLC. The reason why you have to do the LLC is because you're not a resident of Montana. Whereas with South Dakota, it's a little different. You don't have to be a resident of South Dakota. But with Montana, since you have to get the LLC, you also get the protection that comes with an LLC, which means if you're in your home state, you don't have to transfer the tag, which applies in most states. For example, in Florida, if you're here for 30 days or more, you have to transfer the vehicle, and or if you live here or go to school here. However, if it's registered and owned by an LLC in another state, it's no longer your vehicle. You're just basically an employee of the company that drives the vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's legal for those reasons. And it just happens to be that you have to have the LLC in Montana. So it's just another benefit.
A lot of people don't realize also that insurance companies, it's a very mixed space on that, right? Because a lot of these insurance companies, they can't assess the liability, and there's a lot of different reasons for that, right? So in a state like New York, that's a no-fault state, right? So they have the barcode system, they have, where everything, it's a license verification system, right? And they do that because they want people to register their stuff, be handcuffed and handheld to that particular state. But the insurance companies, they have two different ways. I describe this to almost everybody that I talk to, right? So you have the liability that exists in the state of Montana. That is where the policy essentially originates from, right? That pays everybody else. And then you have a physical damage coverage that exists for like your collision and your comp, which is what takes care of paying your stuff. And that's in whatever state, wherever that's garaged at. There's a way to be able to configure that to where it works in each of those states. And you don't have to get crazy or, go into the, to the red or anything like that. We have the insurance companies to be able to do that, and we're licensed in 48 states, soon to be 50, by the way, too. So we have the states and the know-how and the ability to be able to do that. And there's a lot of these places that, like they'll go to their good hands or good neighbor agent, and they'll be like, hey, I'm just, I have the registration in Montana. And now they're trying to send that person out to a Montana agent. And then the Montana agent's like, well, I can't ride it because it's located in, say, Florida or New York or, New Jersey, wherever. And it comes into a very confusing spot for a lot of customers. And this is where we have really struck into the market and been able to create an awesome partnership. What I love with this is that it works so well because you guys do what you're absolutely amazing at, and we do the same, right? So we help each other because without each other, deals aren't getting done. You don't have the insurance, and the person's like, well, I'm not going to do this Montana thing. And then, on the same end of it, it's like they want to be able to register in Montana. They want to be able to use, their street legal vehicle, or they want their exotic car, whatever that they're registering out there. And it's something that we've been able to collaborate together and become, really help each other out, I believe.
Yeah,
it's
and we
been a great
appreciate
relationship.
That. So when we started off for the first few years, we didn't really have any good answer to tell people when they would ask for insurance. We would just tell them, call like Progressive or your current insurance company, and a lot of the times they would call back and they just don't know how to explain it. The insurance companies don't understand what's going on. And then when you reached out, it's like, great, somebody that understands how to insure a vehicle that's registered in another state, because we didn't really know how to explain it or how a policy would be written or how to explain it to the insurance company or if the insurance company would do it at all. So it's great that you're able to help these customers and explain that so then they can better understand how to get their vehicle properly insured.
It really was by complete accident that I reached out to you. It happened. I wrecked. I had a 488 Ferrari that I ended up. It's the 7-minute Ferrari or 8-minute Ferrari that I drove off the lot, and I literally, like, within 8 minutes had it in a guardrail. So it was terrible, right? But I learned this process because I looked around at all these guys that, I'm going to these car shows and I'm seeing like Montana tags, like every other car. I'm like, what is going on in Montana? Like, something's up. And like, it's not just Yellowstone that's cool out in Montana, right? You know, something else is going on out there in Montana, and I need to know what that is. So I started looking and researching. And then COVID hit. We're in the high risk auto business, right? So we already had where we could take and kind of make, you know, chicken salad out of chicken shit, if you may, you know, to put it mildly, right? So there's a lot of times where people, it's very, very difficult for them to be able to get their license back. And we would have these higher risk companies that we could be able to go to. Like, you reminded me when you said about the CC size for your bike, right? So we used to have a method, or we still have this method, where we could be able, if a person had a terrible driving record, we could be able to basically modify them down to where they would go on a scooter that was under 50 cc's, and we could help them to accrue their SR22 or the FR44 when it came to Florida. So eventually the insurance companies were like, no, we're not doing that. And they put a stop to a lot of that kind of stuff, right? But we still have quite a few other states that we can do things like that, to where we were able to get creative, stay within the legal boundaries, and make things happen. But when COVID happened, you didn't have anybody holding the high-risk driver's hand to the fire. So DMVs are closed, courts are closed. Nobody's like, it's people weren't driving as much, that kind of thing. So overnight we lost like 70% of our business. So, you know, I'm thinking this thing's coming back in like a week or two, and then everybody will just call us and go, you know, everything will go back online. And eventually it did, but that took like 8 months for that to happen.
Yeah.
And in the interim of that, I went out to the Lake of the Ozarks, right? So you're not from St. Louis, so the Lake of the Ozarks, you probably just know it as a Netflix show, right?
Yeah, I've
but
heard of it.
Lake of the Ozarks was kind of like the safe place, like where COVID didn't exist. And I was out there coving out with a bunch of buddies on my boat, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing these people just on dirt bike tracks and stuff, RV parks, and they're just riding around, and life is just moving along. And I'm like, man, that's like, I need to be paying attention. I need to take a look at this. And that's when I shifted my entire business model to starting to include it started with the RVs, and then it merged into, and obviously the exotic cars, because that was stuff that I was kind of participating in, I guess you could say. And then it got into the RVs and the bike, or excuse me, it got into the UTVs and ATVs and the bikes and everything. And then that's where I contacted you guys and was like, hey, you give me a chance over here. And you did, and I feel like we did good on that. But man, you want to talk about like a whole community of people, man, like the UTV off-road world, like bikes, everything else. Like there's a whole, like, just an entourage of people that are into the power sports, that are into the off-roading life, the outdoor life, that kind of thing. And it's just, I mean, it's like all year long. And you do good by people on that stuff. And what I found was that would actually lead to bigger pieces of pie, you know, and unknowingly, and just trying to take good care of the customer. But I don't know, it really made me love insurance again. Like it really did, because for so many years, like I was in health insurance at one point in time, like people just, all they would do is yell at you all day long. So, you know, going from that to this, it really was just such a beautiful thing for me. It was a major game changer. And I don't know, I just, I really love what we're doing. I love the type of people that we're working with. And like I said, you know, to find a service like that, it's something that people know how to guide them through, because that's a nerve-wracking thing. You're signing your title over and being like, hey, ship this out in a FedEx envelope, and they don't know you from Adam. I mean, I remember like putting my title in there and being like, I'm shipping out like a $400,000 car title over here, and I'm like freaking out. But it was like instantly. And you guys are the best at it. When I tell you the best, I really, really mean the absolute best at it.
Yeah, and we appreciate that.
I mean, and you got a great crew here of guys. You know, just working with Brooks a lot. Brooks is my sister from another mister over here. So we, Brooks and Caleb, those are the ones I'm really familiar with on here, and you, of course. And I don't know, like I said, it's been a great relationship. I'm super happy that we've been able to work together.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great being able to work with your customers and refer people to you, and just have their questions answered so they don't call us and ask questions that we don't know how to handle. And it's also helpful that you're licensed in pretty much all the states, because our customers, they range. I mean, we get a lot of customers from Florida, California, and New York, as you would expect. But then there's a lot of customers in smaller states and like Wyoming, things like that. And there's not really much going on there, so it's hard to find anybody that's willing to work with them. So, but a lot of people have off-road vehicles that live there, and a lot of those states don't necessarily have a way to drive on any road and get street legal. So it's great being able to help them. So at least now they can start taking it out, even if it's just to the store.
Sometimes it's very, very difficult to put all the pieces together. There's a lot of insurance companies, and I would say we're quite a bit further ahead of the game than a lot of people are, right? But these insurance companies, just like what's happened out in Vermont, you have to find workarounds. You have to find ways to be able to make it work. They're not making it easy for us, for the insurance companies. There's a lot of these companies are pulling out of states. Like we just had, I was telling the guys as I was coming over here, Kemper Insurance Company, they're completely non-renewing everybody in California. So, I mean, there's another one that bites the dust out there in California. Now, California is a whole different planet when it comes to insurance, among other things. But we have where that state has presented a lot of issues for us because the restrictions that they have put on the insurance companies, it's making it very difficult for these companies to be profitable. And that there's other hot states that I'm going to call it, even Florida down here, right? So you have to have been doing this for a long time. You have to have established, some sort of a customer base, a profitability, like a measure of some sort of data for a lot of these companies to hang on to it. So I try and tell new agents that are coming in, I train them on this stuff and I show them and I say, hey, I can help you to gain access to these particular areas that you would normally not be allowed to be in those territories. So we found that we were able to offer more options for the customer, and now we've been able to solve the puzzle when it came to the exotic SUVs. Like that's a really, really difficult one for a lot of places. You go to a lot of these collector companies, they don't want anything to do with these exotic SUVs. They want nothing to do with them because they're daily drivers in a lot of cases. Yeah. And they're super high value. So like your Bentegas, your Cullinans, your Urus, that kind of thing. Even like some of the higher end G-Wagons, the Brabus package, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very difficult. But now we just got contracts and appointments and things to be able to write that stuff now so that we're able to handle pretty much all the difficulties that we were having is no longer going to be a difficulty for us. All the workarounds that we were having to try and be able to, figure out how we were going to make it happen. Well, now it's a lot easier to solve the puzzle.
Yeah, it's really helpful for us because now we're getting more and more customers with exotics, especially unique vehicles like race cars and things like that. Like we did a 2011 Ferrari race car. It was never even made for the road. Yeah. And without you, there's no way that customer's getting it insured.
There's a lot of people, man. Like the big thing that I've started seeing with this is these guys, like they'll take these like 18-wheeler big trucks and they'll slam them to the ground to make them like rat rods. And they'll put like a wing on it and freaking deck the engine out. And I mean, they're cool, really cool. But that's just like, I don't know, man. These are sometimes people that got like more money than sense, and I'll tell you, it's cool though to see because there's a lot of these people that do follow these type of other people. Like there's clubs of people that they're a part of it. So
it's funny you mentioned the rat rods because I was actually just in Vegas a couple months back, and we did a video with Steve Darnell of Welder Up, who had a show on Discovery Channel, Vegas Rat Rods. Yeah. And he had 18-wheelers slammed. The motor's so big you can't even see out of the windshield. Yeah. And he's got all sorts of rat rods. And Funny enough, he's actually in Montana, so a lot of his stuff's already registered there.
Yeah.
But a lot of times he has an old bike or he finds something in a barn and there's no title at all. So we've helped him with a lot of old vehicles. A lot of the time it's hard to even find the VIN or the serial number on it. So, and I could only imagine about insuring those vehicles also.
Listen, my signature was I insured the Oscar Mayer Wiener vehicle, right? It was on this like old, I don't even know what kind, it was like, I think it was an old Cadillac chassis or something like that. And they're kit cars.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like sitting there like, how in the, like, what is the make of this thing? Like trying to really sort this thing out. But that's the reason why we have the type of companies that we have, because they can help us. That was the first one I dealt with. That was the first hot dog on wheels that I insured, but we figured it out. We were able to find that and make that happen. The other one that came through was Scooby-Doo. I hope you know what Scooby-Doo is. I'm not that old,
the mystery
right?
machine.
All right, the mystery machine. I insured, that was like an old Ram van or something, and it was super cool. Like when they're like, this thing's worth like $100,000 or something like that, and I'm like, how is this piece of crap, like 1977 Ram van, worth? And they're like, oh well, it's iconic, and it's been preserved, and it's this, and I'm like, oh. And then I see a picture of what it is, and I'm like, well, why didn't you just say it was a mystery machine? That would have solved a lot of pieces for me, right? But we're able to do it, man. And we've got a great team of underwriters that we have personal access to our own underwriters. That's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of these companies, if you're working with an agent that they're inexperienced with this, they might take a week or two. And most of the time, people need stuff like yesterday, right? They're sitting at a dealership or they need something done. I can literally get on the phone, and within 20, 30 minutes, I can have a policy issued. I can have it completely underwritten. I can have it where, I work out deals with them to, make sure that I can maybe get pictures at a later point in time. There's obviously deadlines and so forth with that. But, if like I have a lot of people that they'll order cars and they're getting ready to be delivered and they have to have insurance to get the car, but they don't have any pictures of the thing, right? So I'm able to get on the phone with the underwriter, explain the situation, get the deal marked, get it done, and move along. And we help that person to be able to solve their problems with the multi-state titling and licensing and, whatever they can throw at us. We can solve it.
Yeah, and that's why we like referring people to you, because we know that you'll always have an answer to give them or get them pointed in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, it's been, you guys provide a lot of people that come through here, and so I'm amazed sometimes at like how much business that you guys press through here, so we're going through some growing pains. So, I know that you had mentioned that you brought on quite a bit more staff, and I've done the same with that. Talk to me a little bit about, your company and growing and how to be able to measure growth, and, just some things like where you felt like it was the time to be able to add on some additional people.
Sure. So I'd say the biggest thing, we started implementing metrics, and we actually display it to everybody on the team. So then we see where we're at. And over the past few months, we've just been falling behind. So many more people are finding out about Montana and some of the other services, just because we have such a wide reach now with our articles. And we've just we realized we have to get more people. So we brought on about 5 people in the last month or so to help out with customer service, just because customer service is so important to us. So we don't want anybody sitting on the phone for 5 minutes. It's just not a good experience.
Yeah.
So we're bringing on more people there. And then, of course, more people to help with the paperwork, because the paperwork, it's not always that easy when you're trying to register one of these custom vehicles when it doesn't have a title and it doesn't have any type of documentation other than a bill of sale.
It's a process. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly. And some vehicles have their own unique process. So just over the past 6 months, we've had to write out a guide of every little nuance that could possibly happen for different states. Certain states you have to notarize a form and this and that. And like we dealt with one the other day. This guy had a truck that he converted to an RV. He tells us he wants it titled as an RV for some type of insurance purposes. Turns out you have to get it inspected, which you can get it inspected in your state, but they want an officer to sign off that it has everything that an RV needs. So we deal with a lot of interesting things like that as well.
I know that I've had people that like they'll put like school buses together and like make them into RVs, and like they're trying to make like a class A type of an RV sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
With the school bus, and some of them are really cool, but those are big challenges where we have to get involved in those kind of things. There's certain companies that we go to for that stuff, and we try and make it work as much as we can. We try and, just like what they did, we try and piece it together and
that's all you can do.
Put together. So there's been some interesting ones that have come to us. I had one guy that had a box van, and he converted it into like an RV sort of thing. He like cut a hole and just like made a window. Like it's interesting, some of the stuff that people will bring to us. But I like it because it's it gives us different challenges. We got to think outside the box of how we're going to get it done.
Yeah, we've got some really interesting cases that we've dealt with. So this company they claim to be the first VTOL, which is vertical takeoff on landing. It's basically a vehicle that can drive on the road up to 35 miles an hour and also fly. So the wings basically fold in so it can drive on the road, and then they come out and it takes off like a helicopter. And we made it legal for them back in the time. That was when we were doing Vermont, and they brought it to a few car shows. But I don't think they got it certified yet from the FAA. But I could only imagine insuring something that can drive on the road and fly.
I don't know, man. Like, that makes me freak out with that kind of stuff, because there's barely, you live in freaking Miami. People can't drive for nothing around here, right? No pun intended with you, But, we almost got in a wreck coming over here and stuff. I was, like, turning a lane, didn't see anybody. Next thing I know, this guy's, like, whipping right beside me. Curbs are nearly obstacles. And then you're going to talk about taking flight, too, with that. I don't know, man. It's like the self-driving car stuff I thought that was going to honestly put me out of business when that came along. Because I was like, well, these companies will have their own stuff. Like, we won't even serve a purpose. And to a certain degree, there is some truth to that. But I believe that there's always going to be some sort of service or an opportunity or something to adapt to be able to make it all work.
Yeah, and I don't think everybody's going to conform to letting their vehicle self-drive, even if they were forced to put some type of device.
Right.
One is, a lot of people aren't going to be buying these newer cars that have these features, and just having the loss of control and relying on that, that's going to be a very hard thing to change.
Right. People don't want to relinquish the control. I totally get that, for sure. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too much on here today, but thank you for sitting down with me, inviting me down to your office, showing some great hospitality here. Tell people how they can be able to find you online, or if there's a phone number that they can call so that they can get in touch with you guys.
Sure. So the best way to find us is dirtlegal.com. Our phone number is right there on the website. It's 800-994-7513. We're available during regular business hours, and you just go right to our website. There's a service finder that'll show you the exact service you need. You just select your vehicle type and what type of proof of ownership you have, or you could just shoot us an email as well if that's easier. But it's as simple as that. You just go through that menu, select your service, place the order, and then we'll send you the paperwork to get started. It's pretty simple.
Yes. All right, cool. Well, thank you again for having us here. Congratulations again to all your success, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming all this way. I appreciate it.
All right.